this week is Dami Patel, who is interim chair of the supervisory trio that oversees Taylor and Francis, publishers of books and academic journals, and part of Informa Group. Dami also holds the position of Group HR Director. Joining the organisation in 2008, she quickly rose to Group HR Director and joined the Taylor and Francis board in 2015. In leading the global people team, Dami focuses on people, culture, operations, transformation and learning to help the business achieve its objectives. She has led many organisational restructures and integrations and introduced innovative HR policies, and she aims to foster a culture of excellence and collaboration worldwide. Welcome to the business of being brilliant, Dami.
Oh, Helen, thank you so much. And thank you for that very warm welcome. Really lovely to be here.
Great. Well, it's great to welcome you on the podcast. I know we've been keen to make this happen for a while, so it's lovely to be in the together. And we're going to be chatting about, your experience of stepping into big roles over the course of your career and some of the realities and challenges and excitements of being a busy HR director of a global business, and also some of the questions around how today HR directors can help find a way to balance employee needs and business needs. So looking forward to getting into all of that with you. But I recall from when we first spoke that you didn't plan to start your career in HR. You started in more of a tech role and then at some point decided to make the switch. And tell us about that.
I did. So very early on, after I'd left university, I actually started. My ambition was to go into technology. So I began my career in IT. I studied IT actually at university. And at the time, I think it would have surprised me to think my future, I was going to end up as part of a people team. I joined an agency and was placed with Debenhams, the retailer, and they needed some work on a bespoke HR system. Two things happened. During that temp work, I found a coding flaw. It's akin to finding a spelling mistake that you might find in a sentence. And the head of HR said, well, we don't have anything in technology or IT, but we do have this last slot on a graduate scheme. I didn't know anything about HR, but it was a HR-specific slot. And honestly, I haven't looked back. I discovered there my passion for colleague experience and truly making a difference in people's journeys. I've been driven to really impact the journey of colleagues from the day that they decide they want to join us to the day that we say farewell. And just witnessing them navigate their professional paths with purpose within an organisation has been really fulfilling and rewarding. Treating individuals with that support, giving them the support and being there for them at every stage has been a core commitment. And as I think I mentioned to you, we really are trying to foster a positive, safe and inclusive work environment. That's where it all began.
Yeah, fascinating. I don't think I know. I've come across many HR directors with, I guess, IT degrees. It must be quite an unusual combination. And does it come in handy?
Well, early on, I think it did. Although, I think if any of my IT colleagues were here, that Dami, switch it off and on again. That's where you're going wrong. But it's come in handy just in terms of the way that I think languages work with your brain, and it's coding. And I said this to my daughter because she likes languages, and I was trying to persuade her to do coding, which she did. I said, it really will come in handy. You won't quite be able to make the link if you don't use it as part of your day job. She's actually gone on to be a full stack engineer, wanting to be a scientist. So but it has come in handy in my job, just in the way that you think about things.
Yeah.
I'd encourage everyone to do a little bit of it.
Yes.
Actually.
It's on my long-standing bucket list of things to learn. It's being a linguist as well. It really appeals from that perspective, learning a different kind of language.
Yeah.
And I know when we spoke before, you were reminiscing about one of your first managers at Debenhams, who you described as being very enlightened, and talked about and encouraged you to just do your work in whatever way meant you could deliver as effectively as possible, and they were very good at kind of judging on the output rather than why did you arrive 10 minutes late this morning?
Gosh, yes.
Yeah, it sounded like they were quite a positive influence on you.
Very much so. And it's the first time that I had a manager say that. I'd never heard the phrase, I don't know, very early on in my career, that this is how we're measuring the time and the commitment. It's on the output. Because I said, I'm not going to be able to come back full time. My child is, for me, for the first couple of years, I'd like to be around full time as I can be. And so I'd started working for some charities and writing policies for them. And she'd heard about this and she'd said, well, why don't you come back and work for me? And I said, I can't, because I can't do full time. And she said, I'm going to measure you on the output, not the hours that you're putting into the organisation. It's not about presenteeism. It's really about the impact that you have made and will continue to make. I'll take whatever I can get. If you tell me that it's 4 hours a week, that's what I'll get. That's what I'll take. If you tell me it's 2, that's what I'll take. She said, but I really do want you to come back. And I went back after mat leave, and it was such a great relationship because the flexibility was there, the trust was there, and I gave it my all because of that two-way trust and flexibility. And it was just, she was a huge influence on me then and continues to be now, 30 years later.
Yeah, that's wonderful that you had such an enlightened manager, and I think when you've had that kind of experience, that very trusting, flexible, output-based approach to being managed, it's almost a bit of a shock to realise that other people have very different experiences because
yes,
there are many ways of managing people, and some of them unfortunately rely on a lot of micromanaging, or I need you to see you to trust that you're being productive, etc. Like you, I was very fortunate to have managers who were very flexible and trusting, and
it's important.
Yeah, it's still a shock today to hear how many people don't have that experience.
No.
Yeah, and you've obviously gone on to take on increasingly bigger roles, and culminating in being Group HR Director and Interim Chair. Tell me how you found the confidence to step up in each time into those increasingly bigger roles. How did it feel, and what helped you to do that?
Firstly, the confidence of others helped me to do that. Sometimes people see things in you that you don't see yourself. And they see things for you that you don't see yourself. And I didn't see myself. I certainly didn't see myself in the role that I've taken on more recently. Well, I say more recently, but it's my 8th month now in this role. But the first role that I fought for, and I'll say fought for because I really did think that I could make a difference. I wanted the people team to have a voice at the table. And so I was in constant conversation with my then HR director So it wasn't about me being at the table, it was about him being at the table, because I wanted the people team to have a voice. And he left, and I thought, right, I not only want this role, but I want the role to be at the table. Although I wasn't quite sure that I was ready for it. But I knew that I could make a difference if I could get there. But entering the room, the imposter syndrome crept in. And it wasn't just a feeling of inexperience, because I'd had quite a lot of experience in HR by that point. And perhaps some of your listeners can relate to walking into a space where you don't feel you quite fit in. I was the only woman in an all-male board, and got a sense of that being different. They all had their own language because they'd been working together for 10 years. They were all very welcoming. I didn't have and very supportive. So I was lucky in that. I was very fortunate in that. And I looked around and I thought, they've got over 200 years of collective experience.
Wow.
In publishing. So, and I'm not from publishing. So that was the other thing that was in the back of my head. So I wasn't really sure what I'd gotten myself into. And I called the then group HR director and I said, I know that Stephen, and I know you know Stephen Carter, our CEO, I know that he was behind some of this because he saw in me what I didn't see in myself. And he has to this day. And I think having that, almost the support, and that I'm going to call it home support. You feel as though you have a cheerleader, and I had one in him. I had others in my own team, and that gives you the strength and the confidence to think, okay, they can do it. So I think I may well have something here that I could really contribute to. So I also did have a little bit of a pep talk from my brother. And he said, who knows more about your specialism than you? So who knows more about the HR agenda and what we need to do and unlocking people? And that was the key. Focusing on your own strength rather than trying to keep up with others and trying to be like others. It's that, your own strength. And to this day, I maintain whenever I need that boost of, going back to your specialism. And people talk about authentic leadership. And honestly, I believe that's the skill we all need to lean into. They often imagine leadership as something they need to try and emulate. And it's something that's out there that you really have to reach for. But I feel if you have that innate ability to just bring your own strengths out and your own leadership style, that goes such a long way to getting your own confidence and people to really think, okay, this isn't what I've read about in terms of a typical leader or seen in a typical leader. You can be your authentic self and lead differently. And I think that was a turning point for me, that it wasn't this thing over here. It was actually something that's already here in me.
Yeah, that's such an encouraging message for us listening to that, because I think it's also quite normal when you're kind of looking at the next level or two up and at the people that are in those roles, is to think that I have to be more like them to get into those kinds of roles, and to be more like them in terms of how I respond to things, how I manage people and others, how I interact with people. And it's so true that actually just pulling on your own strengths and what makes you is the most powerful thing of all. So lovely to hear how that realization has really helped you each time you've taken another step up the big career mountain or taken on a big project. And I know as an HR director, you've helped the organization to navigate lots of changes and the occasional storm. And coming back to what you were saying earlier about, HR having a voice at the table, and I guess particularly reflecting on the fact that you are now, the interim chair of the supervisory trio. How easy is it for HR directors to, to have that impactful voice at the table, and what's the best way they can help their fellow executive team members to weather the ups and downs of, business challenges and opportunities?
Thank you, Helen. That's a great question, because I just think weathering the storms, and we've weathered a few. And sometimes you go into automatic pilot and steer through a crisis. Taking people with you through that crisis is actually one of the most, I'm going to say, sustainable parts of your culture, because they then really see that they've had a part in the result, in the survival, in the longer standing impact. And so the two episodes, there was COVID and then just this recent year of going through that and going through it with your teams. There are so many teams that just galvanized into action because they knew exactly what to do. It was right, okay, we've got to look after people first. Make sure they're okay. Make sure they're connected. Make sure that, I can speak to you. And we managed to get everybody into a virtual world within 5 days of lockdown. And it's as though we knew that this storm was coming. We had been working on a virtual onboarding system for 12 months prior to COVID hitting. And so we launched it about a month earlier than planned. And it was great because we were then still able to recruit people virtually and onboard them. And and there were so many teams that were part of that solution. Inclusivity of voice and ideas and allowing them to really bubble up during a storm when you're in that, okay, let's just go. Finding the time to listen to people's ideas before you take that next big decision. There are lots of little decisions that you can do very quickly but there are big decisions that are going to impact your culture, and allowing all of those voices to bubble up, giving them room and space, I think really helped us. It helped us last year, certainly, and it helped us through COVID. The answers are in the organization, and going to the people who have either been working on some of these solutions because they've looked around the corner and they've seen what's coming, or they've been saying things for quite some time and sometimes the timing just hasn't been right. So that's weathering the storm has really helped by galvanizing the workforce into collective ownership and collective responsibility for the result. And we're at that moment again now that we're through last year with our CEO leaving. We're looking at the market again, the opportunities, and we've got a tuned in survey that we're running on a regular basis, so that we are really listening to colleagues and saying, well, actually, there's an opportunity here. We could do a parents portal. There's a product here. And we've got the strength of network. within our friends, our families, our extended networks, to really spread the word, particularly for our organisation, which it's fostering human progress through knowledge. That's our purpose. And holding on to that purpose and believing in that purpose and extending it across the organisation. They then extend it through their networks. So it's two-way. If you involve them, they then extend it through. Best marketing campaign that you could hope for.
Yeah, I love that. As your mission, fostering human progress through knowledge, and if that is, your purpose, then absolutely it makes sense to be tapping as fully as possible into the knowledge that already resides in your own people. And I get involved in some other bits of work about interviewing people who have left organisations on behalf of their employers, and it's amazing how often kind of not being listened to pops up in one of the reasons for why they decided not to stay long term, because they felt, well, I've got all this expertise and I'm trying to have a say and give my point of view and help steer the big decisions, but no one's listening to me, and that can feel incredibly frustrating. So I love hearing how you're going about, reaching out and encouraging people to share their ideas and their thinking. And your point about actually it's how you take people through the storm is brilliantly made, because we often think, what makes a company a great company to work for? And you tend to think automatically of, well, they've got lovely offices or lots of flexible working or great environment and great people policies or whatever. You don't, and I certainly tend to think about that as steady state stuff, but actually it's far more telling about an organisation as to how they take people through the difficult times. And that's quite hard to get a sense of, obviously, unless you happen to land right in the middle of a difficult time. But I think that's a very telling. But another part of my brain is thinking, I'm sure there's a book to be written about that somewhere, about going through storms, taking people with you through storms. But yeah, it's super interesting. And obviously you're in an industry which is seeing, like many others, massive amounts of transformation due to new technology and kind of changing the traditional business models and customer service models on their heads. What excites you about taking the business forward in this new world of opportunity, and what feels like a big challenge or ambition or two that you're getting your teeth into?
What excites me? I think the same thing that excited me when I joined the organisation excites me now for this next chapter. We now have an opportunity to really think about how we are getting our content out to those experts and people who really are leaning into good quality peer-reviewed content, trusted content. And I had this dilemma because when my children were studying and they were going onto YouTube and looking at, and as a parent, I thought, well, how much of that is fake news and how much of it is real? And I really struggled with that. And I just thought, actually, if we could provide that for the learners of the future, the researchers of the future, the here and now as well as the future, that's an incredible part of our journey, to be able to say, you can come here and be assured it's not fake news. My youngest daughter raised it with me because she was doing natural sciences at university. And she started looking through our chemistry content. And she said, Mum, this is so good. It's so good. It's so rich. She said, it's an opportunity for you to extend it to people like me who I wouldn't have found you if I hadn't known you. I wouldn't have found the content if I hadn't known you. And, you know, my older daughter also said something similar, because she said, oh, you know, it's the Routledge bookshop in my room, because everyone's coming and looking at and I think that's what excites me. It excites me that we've got an opportunity to really have an impact on people and on society, where we've got the content that it's rich, you can trust it, and you can change things. And so that's the biggie for me. And as you mentioned earlier, you know, starting with our own internal customer, providing them with the opportunity to grow and learn with trusted sources of data, as well as experts like yourself. You're an expert, and bringing in experts that can really support them in their own journey along that career trajectory, combined with the prioritization of what the company is looking for, gets you to a win-win solution. So we're in the process now of really looking at how we are mapping each of those priorities against the colleague base that we have, but also what's going to give them an opportunity to grow. Because a lot of the new initiatives, they're going to give colleagues such a great opportunity to grow. And the last thing that excites me is this idea of allowing new early careers, colleagues of the future, an opportunity to look at work differently. So it's just a new concept. It's very early in its thinking, but we're going to try and do what we're calling the Saturday Club, to give people at school an opportunity to, because both of my daughters, they worked in either a bakery or a coffee shop to get Saturday work, they didn't do any evening work, but they did Saturday jobs. We weren't able to offer that opportunity because the offices just didn't open on a Saturday. But now we're in a virtual world, we can extend that, and we can start much earlier. And I just think if we can start earlier and get them interested in publishing and the world of content, it's a great opportunity for us. So I think I've given you a few more than you'd asked for. But.
No, super interesting. And I love the sound of the Saturday Club. So people who are of school age will be able to come and virtually participate in something that you are putting on and offering that will engage them in, come and learn about different jobs.
Yeah.
Taylor and Francis, come and learn about the world of publishing and academic journals. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And
that's because we have in the past relied on graduates coming in, first job, and it hasn't been a very diverse way of recruiting. So we now are looking at actually our diversity agenda, allowing a lot of either school leavers or children who have taken a different path. They've taken a different path, whether it's through opportunity or just choice of actually higher education is not for me.
Mm-hmm.
We want to try and get that diverse thinking through the door.
Yeah, great. Sounds a really good initiative. Good luck with all of that. And listening to what you were saying just a little bit before that about your ambition about how to get your trusted content out and reach out through all your kind of aggregates of networks, but also what opportunities you want to provide through that for your employees. And I was just wondering, as I was listening to that, I was going to be asking the question, so if that's the business priority, how do you balance the employee needs within that? And I think I heard you answer certainly the bit about the learning and the opportunities of that. Are there other things you're looking at around meeting, how you know about what employees need from you as an employer to be able to deliver what you're asking them to do?
Well, that's where I think the strength of our tuned in survey is really going to come to the fore. And during COVID, we had something similar. We used a very similar system to when you're leaving the airport and you've got those 3 buttons to say how happy you were.
Yeah.
Well, we replicated that, a virtual version of, so they just had to press the button. And if they were not feeling, they were either feeling under the weather or a little bit anxious, or they clicked the button and somebody would immediately reach out to them and say, how can I support you? The tuned in survey gives you a little bit more in terms of an opportunity to say, okay, firstly, how are you feeling about the organisation, the opportunities? We hear quite a lot about career progression. And we're trying to go for more of a flatter structure in the organisation. But with that comes the feeling that there isn't a typical ladder to climb. And so there's a lot of work that's going on in our career architecture. And the head of culture is leading the way in a very different way of looking at career architecture and how the careers map across the organisation. And she's brought in her own expert that does this and has done this in many organisations, to really allow colleagues to progress their career in a different way, not just a linear, giving them opportunities to almost go between one specialism and another if that's what they want to do. But if they want to become that specialist expert, there's also that opportunity. All of that will tie, and we're going to use those opportunities to tie into the business priorities, so that they can look over here and think, oh, actually, I really am intrigued by the journey of AI that the organisation is taking. What do I need to build? What capability do I need to build to make sure that I'm part of that journey? The marketing agenda is really exciting at the moment. What kind of capability do I need? What do I have already that can allow me to be part of that initiative and that priority? So there's going to be a lot more cross-collaborative work, so that there is shared ownership towards that end goal. So I think it's going to be quite an exciting year for us.
Yeah, it sounds it. And really interesting to hear about how you're both, I guess, educating in a very gentle way employees about, your business priorities and how they can understand them and contribute to them. But then also really expanding the range of career paths that people can take. Because I know in many organisations it's based on expertise, and you keep going up a certain ladder into a kind of predefined route, following a predefined route, really. But I think yours is a great example of actually making many more options being available to people and encouraging more creative career paths that not just give people the opportunity to keep learning throughout their career and acquiring new skills and being in new contexts and challenges, but also, I guess, really builds your workforce of the future with the breadth of skills that you need to help the business succeed. So really interesting to hear about that. If people listening want to find out more about Taylor and Francis or Informa Group, or get in touch with you professionally, what's the best way for them to do that? Where should they go?
Well, getting to understand us as a business, we've got a great site, and so on informa.com it gives you the entire organisation, because there's, depending on where you want to go in your career, and I think a lot of colleagues coming in don't realise how vast the world of Informa is, and it's such a good opportunity for people to think, oh, just because I come into this part of the company doesn't mean that I can't look more broader. And so that it's a great website to give any perspective.
Yeah, great.
Future colleague.
Yeah, I'll include a link in the show notes. That sounds great. Thank you. And it's been absolutely wonderful talking with you on the podcast today about your own careers from those beginning days in IT and how you discovered a joy and a passion in working in HR and helping people to work to the best of their potential. But a lot of what you're saying has really resonated for me around helping others know what that potential is and then go off and realise that through one route or another. So thank you so much for being a brilliant guest. It's been wonderful to talk with you.
Helen, thank you so much for having me. It's been so nice to talk to you.